conversation with Congressman Patrick Maloney. New York Democrat tees off on the president's tax plan and a lot of looming deadlines fast approaching. Then we dig deeper into tax reform. Also take a look at how the Republican proposal could be very taxing, especially to people in our area. Also, the latest scandal revolving the Trump administration. Cabinet officials using expensive private planes, and guess who's paying for it? That will be you. More guys just got caught doing just that. Now the president says he's going to crack down. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you very much for joining us this Thursday evening. President Trump, he just announced his tax proposal, and it's getting really low marks, at least from Democrats, and certainly from most economists who say the numbers, they just don't add up. We'll take a closer look at that in a minute. Republicans, they're also scrambling to resurrect their push to repeal Obamacare, but it's dead for now and probably for the rest of the calendar year. But the president says he could do some executive orders to make changes to the system, or the GOP could actually try to work with Democrats, heaven forbid, next year. Now, speaking of the president, he's also vowed to fix the Veteran Affairs Department, which provides medical care to millions of veterans in this country. Now, here he is at the signing ceremony for the VA Accountability Bill.
Our veterans have fulfilled their duty to this nation, and now we must fulfill our duty to them. So to every veteran who is here with us today, I just want to say two very simple words: thank you.
But the problem is, the problems remain at the VA. A VA sector, a private sector program that helps vets, they're running out of money, even though it received $2 billion from the government not that long ago. It will need more cash as early as this December, or hundreds of thousands of veterans could lose their care. And that's just one of the things that Congressman Patrick Maloney and I spoke about today. But we started off with the significant issues facing New York, as the congressman talks about with the president's new tax plan. I know the details are few and far between, but your initial reaction to the tax reform proposal, and more specifically, the president saying that this will be a miracle for the middle class. From what you've seen, is that your take?
Look, I wish I didn't have to say this, but the president is all hat and no cattle on this, the same way he was on health care. The fact is the numbers do not add up, and they have no way to get this done. And the reason is because they have chosen to ram this through on this procedure known as reconciliation. And under the rules of that procedure, they're going to have to look for ways to pay for these huge tax cuts. And those ways are going to hurt New York. And that's not going to add up. It's not going to work. I don't believe they have the votes, and they shouldn't, because what they're talking about is jacking the property taxes of everybody listening tonight. They're going to end the deductibility of state and local taxes, which is a shot below the waterline for the state of New York. So I'm going to fight it tooth and nail. But the good news is they continue to stumble through this first year of his presidency, which is a shame, because we do need to reform our tax code and get a lot of other things done, from healthcare to infrastructure. But these guys need to start working with people, and they need to settle down and learn the job.
There's a couple of deadlines that are coming up, and they both relate to healthcare. One is September 30th, CHIP. And we talked with a couple Hudson Valley doctors, pediatricians, who are really concerned that the funding that takes care of more than 600,000 kids in just the state of New York and almost 10 million nationwide, funding is going to run out for that. Can you let us know, will the money be there in Washington, or is this going to become a political football?
Everything's a political football in Washington. I can tell you I'm committed to making sure the CHIP program continues. It's a good program, helps millions of children. It's worked very, very well. We shouldn't play games with it. I think as we move into the fall, this thing is lined up actually pretty well to get that program renewed. So I think we're going to be all right on that.
You've been vocal on veterans issues, and there's a couple concerns as it relates to the veteran population. The president said earlier this summer that he was going to do miraculous things, I think was the phrase here, for veterans, and offer a lot more options to them. But as it relates to Veterans Choice and and specifically that program where they can not have to necessarily go to the VA to get care, there's a worry that the funding, that emergency funding, is going to run out before the end of the calendar year, and you got a lot of people concerned. Obviously, you got some VA facilities in your district. What can you tell us about that? And also, the other concern that there's a move to privatize a lot of this care when people aren't necessarily crazy what that could mean down the road.
Right, and we need to be careful about where that line is, because I can tell you veterans like having choice. They also like the care they get at the VA, particularly in our part of the world. I hear good things about the work done, particularly at Castle Point. So veterans want to make sure that's there for them. We need to make sure the money is in the Veterans Choice Program, which allows them, in certain instances, to seek care in the private sector if needed. That's a good second choice or backup option for some people, particularly in places where they don't have care as good as ours. Remember, I passed a law called the Red Tape Reduction Act, which does the same thing in the disability claims program, where we used to have terrible delays. We've brought those caseload backlogs way down because of options like my legislation, the Red Tape Reduction Act. So there's a role for this. Look, veterans should be able to count on their Congress the way they count on their battle buddies. We should not leave anybody on the field out there. I think you'll see us get in action on that. There's good bipartisan support for that. We can get that job done too.
Finally, Congressman, it's no secret everybody has seen the polarization that has defined this recent Congress. But more than that, there seems to be a worry that, okay, we saw what happened with the latest attempt repealing and replacing Obamacare, but we're going to have some important deadlines that are going to be coming up very quickly right now. Should we feel comfortable that with all the back and forth at the end of the day, the funding for necessary programs are going to be there, or will the public be surprised as things we take for granted may not be for granted?
Well, I think it's very important that Democrats like me take responsibility for the fact that we need to hope this president succeeds, meaning we cannot just lay back and wait to pounce and hope there's some political advantage. I've been very disappointed in the focus and the productivity of this administration. They've really missed a lot of opportunities and they've dropped a lot of balls. But it doesn't mean Democrats should sit back and hope for failure. The fact is we have some very important deadlines coming up, as you mentioned. It's part of the problem when you don't have your act together and issues start stacking up like, chocolates in Lucille Ball and the Chocolate Factory on this conveyor belt called the Congress, because we haven't done health care, we haven't done infrastructure, we haven't done immigration reform, and now we're facing the end of the year where we're going to have a budget that must get done or we'll have a shutdown, and that's where the concern you're talking about comes from. And in that context, there's a real risk of this brinkmanship we've seen. I'm not part of that. I want to work across the aisle to get things done. I think there's an opportunity to do it on all the issues I mentioned, but we do need a leader in the White House. We do not have a presidency to waste. We have got to make sure that we get some things done right now. All I can tell you is that's what I'm doing down here every day.
Fingers crossed. Congressman, thank you for the time.
My pleasure.
Now, coming up next, President Trump says his tax plan won't help rich people like him. We're going to show you why that just doesn't seem to add up, and also explain how people in our area actually could be taking the biggest hit from his proposal.